Introduce our speaker, my father, seen here looking like Fozzie Bear. Today we will hear from Kevin Bosemer. Born in Eden, Oklahoma, a stigma he lives with to this day, in 1973. He has lived in the DFW area most of his life, with some minor adventures in New Mexico, Kansas, and Minnesota. Kevin is a retired air traffic control specialist and has some law enforcement experience. He lives in the Saginaw area with his wife and best friend, Carrie, and of course their son, me. Since retiring, Kevin is a full-time vessel of positivity.
He wrote that.
Part-time funny guy. And a stand-up philosopher. His motto is, I'm as big as life and twice as ugly. Don't let that and his general resting old man grumpy face fool you. Oh, yeah. He is friendly and loves conversation, so don't hesitate to say hi. Dad?
Hey. All right.
Here, let me get out of your way.
No, you're not in the way. All right.
Just tell me when to...
As you said, I'm Kevin Bosemer, or KV, were my operating initials when I was an air traffic controller, or Caveman, which was my nickname. I had 25 years with the FAA, the Department of Transportation, from 1998 to 2023. I've worked under 5 presidents. Personally, worked Air Force One for Clinton, Bush, and Obama, which was one of the proudest moments of my career. I was off on 9/11. That was my day off, but I worked the days and the years after, and that is something that I won't talk about. I was working the day Payne Stewart's airplane went down, and that was a very interesting day. What is air traffic control? Go to the next one. When you think of air traffic control, do you think of this? My wife did.
That's what I thought he did.
I watched there goes an airplane going.
Or maybe this. If you know, you know. Air traffic control is the safe, orderly, and expeditious movement of aircraft through the national airspace system. There are 3 types of air traffic control facilities. The tower controller. Towers, there are hundreds of towers in the United States, control movement, takeoff, and landing clearances. They control the airport and 5 miles around the airport from the ground to 10,000 feet. TRACONs, over 140 of them, control aircraft in a radar environment into and out of airports and transitioning their airspace. The TRACON airspace can be up to 35 miles in diameter, from the ground up to 23,000 feet. DFW TRACON, for example, is 35 miles in diameter from the ground up to 17,000 feet. And by the way, those pictures, that was what a TRACON looks like. So it is a very dark room with radar panels, and that's kind of what DFW TRACON looks like if you walked in there. An en route controller, or a center controller. There are 22 centers, including Puerto Rico and Guam. They control an aircraft in a radar environment, transiting their airspace into and out of uncontrolled airports in their airspace. En route centers can cover several states from the ground to 60,000 feet. Stages of flight. Oh, and this is actually a picture from Fort Worth Center. That was actually one of my supervisors, and that guy was another controller that I had worked with. But that's a representation of what I actually worked in front of. These are the stages of flight. So when an airplane taxis, he's talking to a ground controller, and then he gets switched over to the other controller who clears them for takeoff and off on the runway. And then they switch them to the TRACON, which works them in their climb. And they only talk to them from about 10,000 feet to 17,000 feet. Then they hit the center controller, and that's who they're talking to for the longest amount of time in their flight. So that's us. And for an idea of what Fort Worth Center looked like, this is a map of Fort Worth Center. And right here is DFW. And over here is Clovis, New Mexico. We worked airspace, so part of this is New Mexico. Down here is Waco. Over here is, this right here is Barksdale and in Louisiana. And that's the big Air Force base. And this is Monroe, Louisiana. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how big this airspace was that we worked. The airspace that I worked departures out of DFW, and I worked airspace all the way to Clovis, New Mexico. I worked cross-country traffic. We had arrivals coming down here that were going to Houston and departures from Houston, crossing traffic, DFW departures. I had DFW arrival route right here. And by the way, all of this stuff on the map, just as an idea, when I went through training, I had to draw this map from memory and everything that was on it. We were responsible for a lot of knowledge that I since then have lost. But when they're getting close to the airport and they're in their descent, they'll be talking to the TRACON again, and then back to the tower. So at all times, when an airplane taxis, to the time they taxi to their gate, they are always talking to an air traffic controller. Okay. I'm going to try and keep this as light as I can. Air traffic right now is low staffing, high stress, high stakes, and burnout. There's a staffing shortage with roughly 11,000 certified controllers, with them needing 14,000 controllers. It can take 3 years to train a controller. Only about 2% of applicants actually certify to become ATC specialists. You must meet aptitude, physical, mental, and security requirements. Only 65% of the trainees that go to Oklahoma City make it through their 3-month training. Of those trainees, only 50% go on to certify in facilities during their on-the-job training. And that training can take up to 3 years. So while we're losing controllers to, actually a lot of them have quit or retired, we're not keeping up with the attrition. So we have critically staffed facilities. 90% of the facilities in the nation's airspace are at or below minimum staffing. So these controllers are working 6-day weeks, 10-hour days, and when you're a controller, and it's really hard to kind of explain what it is I did, because my wife could tell you, I took her on a visit to my facility, and it really is hard to express what we did unless you see it. And the pace of the job, it never stops. So, I mean, you do take breaks during the day, but when you plug in and you're working a sector, you're constantly making decisions. You're constantly calculating in your head, is this guy climbing fast enough? Is this guy's speed slowing down? What's my spacing here? Spacing for center controllers is 5 miles and 1,000 feet. So those aircraft have to be separated by a lot. So when you're talking about that and the speeds that aircraft are going, closure rate can be up to 1,000 miles an hour, because air carriers are generally going about 500 miles an hour, and if they have the wind on their tail, they're going even faster. So it's a lot of quick decisions, and you keep in mind that there are people in those airplanes, and that takes a heavy toll on people. Before I retired, I really felt that. I was not the cheerful, positive guy you see before you today. While I was working, in fact, in a minute I'm going to have my wife and son share their experience. But I just want to mention 3 people that I've lost recently. 2 people in the last few weeks, and 1 person last year. By the way, this whole presentation was spurred by an article I read in the Wall Street Journal. The article's title was, "I Can't Talk to Anybody." And it was about an air traffic controller's wife. Her husband committed suicide. He was working 6-day weeks, 10-hour days. He could not handle the stress, but he couldn't talk to anybody. And when you say, "I can't talk to anybody," you can't, because if you talk to a counselor and you get diagnosed, because we have to have a flight physical and maintain that flight physical to do our job. If you are diagnosed with any kind of depression, you're done. You will not be able to work again. You can't take you can't take any medication and work. I mean, even over-the-counter stuff that you wouldn't even think. Why would that disqualify you? Imodium AD will disqualify you for a month. I never found out why the flight surgeon thought Imodium AD was bad, but I certainly wouldn't want to go to work with that kind of problem. Here's some people that I've lost, or that we've lost. Eric Grider, last year. 3 children and a wife, walked into his backyard and shot himself. This man right here is a good friend of mine. His name was Kobe Mitchell. This man made me laugh harder than I have ever laughed in my life. He had a drinking problem. There was a lot of pain behind that humor, and he died a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure what the cause of his death was, but I'm pretty sure the alcohol had a lot to do with it. He is a month older than I am. Cindy Womack was somebody that I worked with, and I saw how the stress ate her up, even before she retired. And then she moved down to the coast, and I know she had a heavy drinking problem. She passed away from cancer just a couple of weeks ago, about the same time Kobe died, and she died alone. You don't see, there's no statistics, but you don't see a lot of old controllers. A lot of controllers retire and die. It's because it's a job that it takes a lot out of you. I had the same thing. I couldn't talk to anybody. I have diabetic neuropathy, and I knew about a year and a half that something was going on in my hands and my feet, but I couldn't say anything because I didn't want to lose my medical. And that was a poor decision on my part because now it's almost, it's pretty debilitating. But that was my choice. Anyway.
One statistic from that article that said the suicide rate for controllers was 3 times larger than the national average.
No, that I don't have that. That wasn't in my article. But let me move on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make this so heavy, but it is a heavy subject because I'm not trying to make an editorial on our nation's air system because it's one of the safest in the world, but right now we have a staffing crisis. And I mean, if you looked online, these are just, 5 of the articles that I pulled just recently from this last year. In the last 3 years, there have been dozens of articles about this, and it's not getting better. So you're going to see probably a lot more things in the news as controllers keep getting burned out, keep getting slower. But again, I'm not trying to sour anybody on flight. These controllers are professional, and when you get on a plane and you fly somewhere, you can be sure that somebody's working that airplane that knows what they're doing and cares, and they're going to get you to where you're going. But sometimes, it just, things happen, which, go back to the other one. Okay, let me keep it on there. No, yeah, right there. I want to have Carrie and Jackson come up and just give you an honest take on what life was like when I was an air traffic controller. I asked them to be honest, even if it's not flattering, because it's not. I was not an easy person to be around on thunderstorm days or days that something happened. Yeah, and I did not handle the stress very well at the end of my career. So without further ado, Carrie, Jackson.
Okay. I'm Carrie. It wasn't easy to be a controller's wife. I didn't quite understand really the stress until I had a baby. And, he was off for 6 weeks and he had to go back to work. And I thought to myself, I cannot wake him up to help me with this baby because tomorrow he'll have to go to work and maybe talk to 30 planes with hundreds of people, and those people need him to be alert. So I suffered through postpartum depression and sleeplessness and newborn baby stuff just alone. I always felt like I could not come to him with anything that I was dealing with because I felt like it was trivial compared to the problems he was facing. And then also the problems he was facing, I couldn't help him with. It sucked watching your partner suffering and there was nothing that you could do to understand what they were going through or help them with what they were going through. So the only thing I could do was, and this probably sounds trad wife, but the only thing I could do and the only thing I could control was our home. And I made our home a haven from the outside world. I cooked, I decorated, I cleaned, I took care of Jackson and all of the school things, all of the doctor things. I did all of that. I went to countless things by myself because he worked odd hours. And one person even said when he finally did show up to something, they're like, oh, your husband's not Snuffleupagus. He actually exists. So I did a lot of things alone. But the job also afforded us a wonderful house, a nice car. I was able to stay home and be really involved in my son's school. So there was the good side, but, and then towards the end, watching him suffer with his health, being in pain and worrying about government shutdowns and, where we were going to get it. I'm glad he retired when he did. He was eligible at 49, but they're forced out at 56. And he went ahead and just retired because his health could not have held out. He was so burned out and so miserable. It just wasn't worth it. And then I was afraid if Trump got back into office that it would be hell, and it was. So I'm glad he did. But there was good and there was bad. And now that he's out, and it's been 3 years, the change has been completely overwhelming. He's a completely different person. I'll let you go.
I'd say
Level it out, buddy. Give it to me.
well, growing up, it definitely strained our relationship. As I got older, I came to understand really how he felt, but at my young age, I didn't understand what was going on or why. And so for a long time, I dreaded seeing him and having him home. She can attest that whenever we'd be in the car ride home from school, I'd always ask 2 questions. What's for dinner, and is Dad home? And for a long time, I was afraid of him because of that. The moniker he gets from my cousins is Mean Old Uncle Kevin,
Yeah.
and that was earned. But even now, we're still trying, but it's hard.
Yeah. That's all right, buddy. Come here. I'm here for the real thing. All right. So you can go to the next slide. Okay. I'm about to show you a video, and this video is of the collision of the Black Hawk and the Eagle flight in Washington, D.C. this last year. Yes, ma'am?
I'm sorry, can you translate Black Hawk? That means military.
Yeah, it's a helicopter and a regional jet that was that happened in February of 2025, or January 29th of 2025.
Potomac River.
This is real audio and transmissions between the aircraft and the controller. It's not easy to watch and listen to. If I would understand if you didn't want to watch or listen to this, please feel free to step outside for just a few minutes. But this is the weight and reality that air traffic controllers deal with, and I'm going to share a story after this video. Go ahead, and I'm going to stop the video during several parts to explain what's happening.
Medevac Airfare 1 to Washington. Medevac Airfare 1 to Washington, Star, just saw someone 2990. Approach the Russell class rover, Saints Portland, Shooter Fairfax. S25, get the third in flight. S25.
Go ahead.
S5 is here, Dave.
Okay, yeah, pause it here. So he said, Pat 25, he gave him the traffic. He told him where this aircraft was so he could see him and make sure that he saw him. And Pat 25 responded, I have him in sight. And what he says is, Pat 25 has the aircraft in sight, request visual separation. What that means is, this helicopter is supposed to go behind this regional jet right here. He has him in sight, and he is going to separate himself from that aircraft. And that's telling the controller that he is going to make or let that pilot do his job, because the controller just did his. So, so as far as that controller knows, these two are going to miss. So go ahead.
470.
Pause it, keep going.
Don't pause it.
Fast enough for individual. 472, Washington Star, 1 star, 320.
Pause it. Oh, okay.
Here, I can go back.
No. Oh, you can pause it right now. What you heard on the frequency was the air traffic controller talking to another aircraft. And what you heard in the background was another controller seeing what just happened. So what I want you to try and pick up on, this controller has to keep going. He has stuff to do now because something catastrophic has just happened. So go ahead and play it.
Did you see that? American 130, go wrong, turn left in 250, climb maintain 3000. Left in 350, 3000, American 3130. Tower, Blue Street, 5347 is on final request, runway 33, circle to 33. Take advantage, American 3130. American 3130, go wrong, turn left in 270, climb maintain 3000. 270, heading 3000, American.
Pause it. Now, do you hear the panic in that voice? But he has to keep going. So, and right now he's got 100 things to do. Now, let me also say that he was working 2 positions that could have been split. So right now he's fairly busy, but he's got to shut this airport down. These aircraft can't land right now. So what he does, and the first thing he does, which is very professional, even though you hear in his voice, the gravity of what's just happened, first thing he does is turn this aircraft out. And you're going to hear him start to turn everybody out. This American said, "Tower, did you just see that?" So these aircraft just saw it. Everybody on that runway just saw what happened. But right now, there's 2 people in that tower, and they've got to shut this airport down. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm touching the screen. They've got to shut this airport down. Somebody's got to start search and rescue. They've got 100 calls to make, and they are scrambling. But the professional thing, I want you to really take from this video is that he kept going. And because when you have something like that happen, it is incredibly difficult to swallow that, keep that professional calm and keep going. Even though, you hear in his voice that, okay, he's excited, but go ahead and play the video.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna have to. Dang it.
That's okay, bud.
I don't know.
Medevac X-Air 1 to Washington.
We don't have to play anymore. I think we kind of have the idea there. What he does is turn all the aircraft that he has on final out. You see the other aircraft because the other controller's already talking to the other facilities. So the TRACON's already turning everybody out. Now, that goes back, right? Because you have all kinds of aircraft going into DC. Now the center's having to spin people. When something like that happens, the repercussions, it's like throwing a big stone into a lake. I mean, it goes out. But the professionalism there was outstanding because he kept going. He talked to those aircraft. The aircraft that he had on the runway that he was about to clear for takeoff, they couldn't take off. He had to ask them if any of them saw what happened, and they all had. So he had to give them a phone number because they had to call in and tell what they said. This controller after he cleared these aircraft out, there's helicopters all over DC right now, and most of them are military, and then there was a couple of medevacs. He was asking every one of those aircraft if they had searchlights because they needed help finding people. So they were already getting help right away. So that's what I wanted you to see. That is the gravity of what a air traffic controller does, because if they miss something or something goes wrong, you know, they still have stuff to do. They can't quit. So that being said, let me give you my story. May 26th of 2015, I was working a midnight shift. So in a midnight shift, we do the same thing. There's 3 people that work a midnight shift per specialty. There are 6 specialties in Fort Worth Center. I was working this airspace right here. So this is Lubbock, Texas. And this is Amarillo up here in Albuquerque Center's airspace. This is Midland down here. The night I was working was very busy, and I was working 3 sectors combined. And it was busy that night because we had thunderstorms around DFW, and aircraft were coming in late. So I was working, there were DFW arrivals coming in from the south that had to go around the thunderstorms and come in from the northwest. So I was really busy having to put these guys in a sequence for the next controller. I had an aircraft check on at 9,000 feet. He was a flight from Nebraska going to Lubbock, Texas. He was at 9,000 feet. His call sign was November 4645 Tango. He was a Cessna 182 with just the pilot on board. When he checked on, he was level at 9,000 feet, but he started losing altitude right after I talked to him. So right about here, when he crossed the boundary, he was about 400 feet low, and that's below what our normal radar should say he is. So I asked him, 45 Tango, I'm showing you about 400 feet low, verify your altitude and altimeter, and I gave him a little bit. Okay, that's just all jargon. But he was aware, and he said, yeah, I'm losing altitude. I'm having some engine trouble, and I'm looking into it. So I can't just stop and focus in on him, because I've got this stuff going on down here. I've got other overflights that I'm talking to. So there's a lot going on. And then this controller's busy because there's bad weather right here, and there's DFW departures trying to snake their way through this weather. So he was busy. I heard him back there cussing up a storm, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to get any help from him. But this aircraft continued to lose altitude. And I asked him again. I said, okay, I'm showing you in a descent. Do you need some assistance? And he told me, I'm having engine trouble. And right away, so right now I've got the first thing I need to do. I told him the closest airports were Tulia, and I can probably see it. No. Plainview is right here, and Tulia Airport is right here, and he was right here. So I told him where his closest airports were. I told him what the runways were. I started giving him all the information I could give him to help him, because there's nothing I can do other than give him that information. he said he was going to go to Plainview. So I gave him vectors. Now I've got 100 things to do because he is an emergency aircraft. So I called Lubbock Approach because he was going to be into Lubbock Approach's airspace and let them know he's got an emergency aircraft inbound. The next thing I had to do was call the watch supervisor and tell him, hey, I got an emergency aircraft. I need you to call our extra controller back. I need help because now I've got a ton of things to do. And then it was just, getting stuff done, talking to him. And so now I keep telling him, okay, Plainview's here and Thule is here. And he said something that I will remember for the rest of my life because it's in my head. Center, we're not going to make it anything. So, wow. And so the helplessness that you feel in that moment, knowing, number one, there's nothing you can do to help this man. Number two is what can I do? So I just told the supervisor, my watch supervisor ran down to my area and stood behind me while this is going on. And I told him, he's not going to make anything. He's going down. And I said, it looks like he's going to circle and try to glide because he had totally lost his engine. We need to call search and rescue, and we need to call all the counties around there and let the sheriff's department know. And we were just, and it was much faster than that. All of this happened within just a few minutes. But that was the last thing I heard from that pilot was, Center, I'm not going to make anything. And I lost radar and radio communications with him shortly after that. So there was nothing I could do. So then I had a full-on mess down here that I had to keep going and make sense of. I had to have somebody. I asked if anybody could go to that area to see if they could see anything. So I had to work, and I did. I kept myself together, even though I really was on the verge of crying. And you could hear my voice cracking, just like that controller. You heard in the pilot's voice too, that especially that first American, you heard his voice cracking when he was reading back his clearances. So I got through it. Now, I didn't hear anything about that pilot until I got off in the morning. So that whole shift, that was at the beginning of my shift. So that whole shift, I sat with that. Now, let me just tell you, the pilot lived. So, there's that. That was the descent of my career, because it was 3 hours before I was relieved. So I had to keep going for that amount.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say happened to the pilot?
He lived.
He lived.
He lived. He made the glide down and landed in a field and actually overturned the aircraft, and there was a lot of damage to the aircraft. Now, the NTSB says that there was no injuries, but my supervisor said that that guy had broken bones. So the only thing that mattered was he lived, you know, but it made a mark, and for the rest of my career, I second-guessed almost everything I did. You know, is this good enough? Because in that moment, I was a good controller. I really was. But in that moment, see, we're our own worst enemies. So when something like that happens, it goes through your mind on a loop, because you're thinking of everything that you did and everything that you said. Was there anything I could have done better? Yeah, I could have done this. Would it have made a difference? No. And the one thing I regret, and the one thing that in that moment, even though I was super professional, was I wanted to be more human. I didn't tell that guy before he lost contact with me, man, I'm with you. I'm here with you. We're getting search and rescue for you, man. We'll be looking for you. I didn't say that. And I kicked myself every day for not saying that, even though, you know, there was nothing in the NTSB report about what I did, only that I told him where the airports were. There was nothing that the after incident report that my facility did said, you know, hey, you could have done this better. But in my heart, that was the thing, you know. And from that point on, I wasn't the controller I thought I was. I wasn't that guy. I wasn't the hot shot. I wasn't, you know, you could have done that better. And so that kind of started the grumpiness, the stress, and the same spot that kid was in. I couldn't say anything. If I went to a counselor and I told him what happened, you know, that's PTSD, and you know, and if I said the way I was at home, yeah, definitely. So, you know, you don't say anything. So I just, that's the reason for this presentation, is I wanted to share that with y'all. I wanted, because I saw that article and I saw myself in that article. Although I never thought about doing anything like that. You know, it never got that bad for me. I saw in him and what happened, how it could have happened to me, because I was there. You know, I hated my job by the end. I didn't want to do it. Because in the back of my head, I thought, at any moment, you know, just some random moment, you're going to be working an emergency again. And I didn't want to do it, because I had already worked all kinds of emergencies. I had already had an aircraft go down while I was working it, that they survived. They landed in a field, but it was the same kind of thing. But I was actually talking to the guy all the way to the ground. Everything was hunky-dory, but I'd worked all kinds of other emergencies, and always, was professional, did good. But this thing, this left a mark, and it made it hard for the rest of my career. But I couldn't say anything, and I saw that headline, and it just and the article was devastating. It really was. But there is, I'm sorry I couldn't really give you the intricate view of my job. But there is a video that I saw just recently, and I think we put a link on the web page or the newsletter. That was really good. It's only 26 minutes if you want to watch it, but it's the stages of air traffic controllers. And it is one of the best videos describing the experience of an air traffic controller I've ever seen. So that's worth 26 minutes if you've got it.